This is hilarious. Notable projected WNBA salaries per new CBA. Aliyah Boston, and this is what they're currently making versus what they will make. And I'm going to tell you, there's some, it's funny seeing the amount of people that's about to make more money than Angel Reese. Angel Reese is punching air right now.
Look at those numbers. Aliyah Boston jumping from $94,000 to $574,000. Caitlin Clark going from $85,000 to $528,000. Angel Reese from $75,000 to $350,000. These aren't just salary increases, this is the direct result of what one person did for an entire league in a single season. And the reaction to these numbers, it's exposing something a lot of people don't want to talk about. Because when you see who's making what, and you understand where this money actually came from, the thank you cards start looking real awkward.
Then Caitlin Clark. Paige Beckers goes from $80K to $500,000. Cool $500,000. Cameron Brett, $85K to $493,000. Hell, she missed most of an entire season. Sonia Cintron, $80K to $436K. You know what we don't do? We don't talk about how good she is. Cintron, pretty good player. I got to be honest.
Diamond Miller making $536,000. She's the second highest paid player from these recent draft classes, sitting right behind Aliyah Boston. And here's the thing that makes this fascinating. Diamond Miller missed most of an entire season with a knee injury. Cameron Brink tore her ACL, and she's pulling in $493,000 next season. Meanwhile, Angel Reese, who played a full season, set rebounding records, and generated massive social media engagement, is making $350,000. She's getting out-earned by players who barely saw the court. That's not a commentary on those players' talent. That's just the reality of how draft position determines your salary in this new CBA structure.
All right. My girl Camila Cardoso, she making a cool $110,000 more than Angel Reese. Now, you may be asking, why is that, Rhodes? Well, because Camila was selected number 3. Angel was selected number 7. All right. JC Sheldon, $402,000. Kiki Arifin, $407,000. She's a hell of a player, too. I believe Kiki is what everybody keeps telling me this one is. All right. Yeah. We've seen that, Angel.
And people are noticing. The comment section on this salary breakdown is absolutely ruthless. Someone wrote, Angel making less than Cam and Sonia is crazy work. Another person said, Angel gets $1 for every missed layup. That's the bonus program. But underneath the jokes, there's a legitimate question here. Because when you look at the names on this list, when you see the salary jumps across the board, you have to ask where this money is actually coming from. The WNBA just secured a $2.2 billion media rights deal. That's $220 million per year flowing into the league. They also extended their deal with CBS and ION, which was previously worth $60 million annually and likely doubled to around $120 million. We're talking about roughly $300 million per year in media rights revenue. That's the influx that's funding these salary increases. And the question nobody in the league wants to address directly is this. Would that media rights deal exist without what happened in 2024?
Caitlin, thank you for the incredible energy, the passion, and the historic impact you brought to the WNBA. You've lifted the entire league. We're proud to call you our sister. With love and respect, the players of the WNBA, and how do you know this is AI? Because they ain't never going to say nothing that nice about Caitlin Clark, unfortunately. They should. They all should be donating like 1% out of their check.
Someone literally created an AI-generated thank you card that's supposed to be from WNBA players to Caitlin Clark. It says, thank you for the incredible energy, passion, and historic impact you brought to the WNBA. You've lifted the entire league. We're proud to call you our sister. With love and respect, the players of the WNBA. And the person who posted it wrote, how do you know this is AI? Because they would never say anything that nice about Caitlin Clark. That's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath these salary numbers. The league experienced unprecedented growth in 2024. Television ratings exploded, attendance records shattered, merchandise sales went through the roof, and all of that growth was concentrated around one player and the handful of rookies who came in with her, particularly Angel Reese.
Let's come on now. This is great, but what happens when the Caitlin Clark effect wears off and they're back to 3,000 fans a game? Damn. D-zam. Wow. How the F is Cameron making more than Angel Reese? I don't know. Okay. We'll see here. We'll see. Angel Reese, $1 for every missed shot and rebound. Nice. Ooh.
Here's what makes the salary structure particularly interesting. Aliyah Boston is eligible for performance escalators that could push her salary over $1 million. She made the All-WNBA team, which triggers those bonus incentives. Caitlin Clark, despite having a better statistical season and winning Rookie of the Year, isn't eligible for those same escalators yet because she's 1 year behind Aliyah in terms of league tenure. So Boston's making the max or close to it. Clark's base salary is $528,000, but she'll likely get bumped up with incentives as well. The Fever would be foolish not to maximize her compensation within the CBA structure. But even with those adjustments, we're talking about players who generated hundreds of millions in value for the league, making a fraction of what their male counterparts earn. And before anyone jumps in with the revenue comparison, yes, we understand the NBA generates more money. That's not the point. The point is the ratio of value generated to compensation received.
That's where it's the influx of the roughly 220 million into the league, plus they re-upped and extended a deal with CBS/Ion. I don't know what that new deal, how much that media rights deal is. It was $60 million per year just for that part. I got to think it's got to be twice that now.
The comments keep coming back to one theme. Where's the money coming from? Someone asked. That's actually the right question. Because when you're a league that's historically struggled with profitability, that's relied on NBA subsidies to stay afloat, and suddenly you're handing out salary increases of 400 to 500%, something fundamental changed. What changed was the product became watchable to a mainstream audience. And that happened because Caitlin Clark brought her college fan base with her. 24 million people watched her final college game. When she got drafted, those fans followed her to the WNBA. When the Fever played, people tuned in. When she played on the road, opposing arenas sold out. The Indiana Fever went from playing in front of 4,000 people to selling out 17,000-seat arenas. Road games that used to draw 3,000 fans were suddenly packed. The league's average attendance jumped 48% in 2024. Television ratings for WNBA games increased by 170% compared to 2023.
That's the way it works. So, anyway, pay up, deserved. Why is Angel at the bottom? I don't know. I mean, my goodness. End all be all, obviously. Angel's getting $1 for every layup she misses. That's the bonus program. Oh, shit. Now the players can't be getting detained by Russia.
And here's where it gets complicated. Because while Caitlin Clark was driving this unprecedented growth, she was also dealing with physical play that crossed the line into targeting, comments from other players dismissing her impact, and media narratives that tried to distribute credit for the growth to everyone except the person actually responsible for it. Chennedy Carter hip-checked her on a dead ball. DeJohnny Carrington poked her in the eye. Alyssa Thomas called Clark fans the dark side after losing in the playoffs. Multiple veterans made comments about rookies needing to earn their respect while simultaneously cashing checks that only existed because of the attention those rookies brought to the league. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. You have players benefiting directly from growth they didn't create while simultaneously resenting the person who created it.
Yeah. Are they even playing ball in Russia anymore? Putin was paying real money. He was paying like 1.5 million like a decade ago for big names. That's why Brittany was over there. He was paying over $1 million. Come over there and play. Smoke that cannabis in the state of Russia. Oh, Rhodes. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out. Until next time.
So let's address the elephant in the room that shows up in every comment section. Someone wrote, if equality was real, they'd be making $50,000. Another person said, high school boys' teams would destroy them in a blowout. These comments are designed to be inflammatory, but they're pointing at a real tension. The WNBA has positioned itself as a social justice cause as much as a sports league. The narrative has been pay us what we deserve, without always acknowledging that sports salaries are determined by revenue generation, not by effort or skill in a vacuum. When you make equality the central argument, you open yourself up to comparisons that aren't flattering. But here's what that argument misses. The WNBA doesn't need to be equal to the NBA to be valuable. It doesn't need to generate the same revenue to deserve investment. What it needs is honest accounting of where its value comes from and who's creating it. And in 2024, the accounting is pretty clear.
I got to tell you, she's upset. Aliyah Boston goes from $94,000 to $574K. That's a pretty good little increase, but it gets better for her. I can tell you right now, with incentives because of making the all WNBA team, that 574 is really going to be like 1.1 million if the Fever choose to offer her the max or get her.
Look at that list again. Aliyah Boston, Diamond Miller, Caitlin Clark, Camila Cardoso, Rakea Jackson, JC Sheldon, Kiki Ariafin. These are the players getting the biggest salary bumps. And with the exception of Boston, who was drafted in 2023, all of them are riding the wave that Clark created. Camila Cardoso is making $460,000. She's Angel Reese's teammate, drafted 3rd overall in 2024. She played well when healthy, but she's not the reason people started paying attention to the Chicago Sky. Angel Reese is making $110,000 less than Camila because she was drafted 4 spots lower. That's how the system works. Draft position determines your salary scale. Performance can trigger escalators and bonuses, but your base is set by where you were selected. It's a rigid structure that doesn't account for actual value generation or marketability. Here's what makes this entire situation fascinating from a business perspective. The WNBA just negotiated a CBA that dramatically increases player salaries based on projected revenue growth. That projection is built almost entirely on what happened in 2024. The media companies that signed those $2.2 billion deals did so because they saw the ratings, saw the attendance figures, saw the engagement metrics. But what happens when the Caitlin Clark effect normalizes? What happens in year 3 or 4 of this CBA when she's just another established player and the novelty has worn off? What happens if she gets injured? What happens if the casual fans who showed up in 2024 don't come back in 2025? The league has made a massive bet that the growth is sustainable. They've committed to salary structures that require maintaining or exceeding 2024 revenue levels. If the numbers regress to even halfway between 2023 and 2024, the financial model breaks down. And that's the risk nobody's talking about. Because right now, everyone's celebrating the salary increases. Players are posting their excitement on social media. The union is taking credit for negotiating a great deal. But the deal only works if the revenue continues flowing. And the revenue only continues flowing if the product remains compelling to a mainstream audience. The comment that keeps showing up is, what happens when the Caitlin Clark Fed wears off and they're back to 3,000 fans per game? That's not just trolling. That's a legitimate business question. Because if attendance drops back to 2023 levels, if ratings crater, if merchandise sales decline, the league is going to be paying out salaries it can't afford. The NBA subsidy can only cover so much. The media rights deals are structured with performance escalators and out clauses. If viewership targets aren't met, the money decreases. That's standard in these contracts. So the pressure is on to maintain what was built in 2024. And that brings us back to the thank you card. Should every player in the league be sending Caitlin Clark a personal note of appreciation? Should they be donating a percentage of their salary increase to a thank you for keeping our league afloat fund? Obviously not. That's absurd. But should there be some acknowledgement of reality? Should there be some recognition that the rising tide lifting all boats came from a specific source? Should the players who spent 2024 taking shots at Clark, physically and verbally, maybe reconsider their approach? Because here's the thing about professional sports. Your salary is determined by your ability to generate revenue. It's not determined by how hard you work. It's not determined by how skilled you are in absolute terms. It's determined by whether people will pay money to watch you play. Caitlin Clark made people pay money to watch the WNBA. She filled arenas, she drove television ratings, she sold jerseys, she created a cultural moment that transcended women's basketball and became a mainstream sports story. And everyone in the league benefited financially from that moment. The very least they could do is not resent her for it. The very least they could do is recognize that their 400% salary increase didn't come from their individual performance. It came from collective growth that one person was primarily responsible for creating. But that's not the narrative we're getting. Instead, we're getting comments about how the rookies need to earn their respect. We're getting physical play that crosses into cheap shots. We're getting dismissive comments about fans who only showed up because of Clark. We're getting a complete failure to acknowledge the obvious reality that everyone can see in the numbers. Aliyah Boston's salary going from $94,000 to $574,000 didn't happen because she improved as a player. She was already good. It happened because the league's revenue exploded, and the league's revenue exploded because Caitlin Clark brought mainstream attention to the product. Angel Reese going from $75,000 to $350,000 didn't happen because she set rebounding records. It happened because she was part of the same rookie class that generated unprecedented interest in the league. Every player on that salary list owes their increase to the same source. And the fact that we're not allowed to say that out loud, the fact that acknowledging it gets you labeled as a hater or accused of diminishing other players' contributions, that's the problem. Because sports is a meritocracy, your value is determined by what you bring to the table. And in 2024, Caitlin Clark brought more to the table than everyone else combined. She brought the attention, the ratings, the revenue, and the cultural relevance that the WNBA had been chasing for 25 years. So when you see those salary numbers, when you see players making $500,000 who were making $80,000 the year before, remember where that money came from. Remember who made it possible. Remember that the $2.2 billion media rights deal doesn't exist without the growth that happened in 2024. And maybe, just maybe, the players cashing those checks should spend less time resenting the person who made them possible and more time figuring out how to sustain the momentum she created. Because if the numbers regress, if the casual fans disappear, if the ratings drop back to 2023 levels, those salary increases are going to look real questionable, real fast. The Caitlin Clark stimulus package is real. The question is whether the league can build something sustainable on the foundation she created, or whether this was just a one-year spike that's going to crash back down to earth. Time will tell. But for now, everyone's getting paid. And they all have one person to thank for it, whether they want to admit it or not.